Hi everyone, I'm Paula and welcome back to Jubilant SPR. Today I'm going to show you something that you can make with used citrus peels of any type and some basic ingredients. Instead of throwing peels into garbage or directly to compost, why not use them to make a homemade citrus cleaning vinegar? I'll guide you through this simple process. It can be easily scaled and the peels get an extra use. A number of years ago, I learned how to make apple cider vinegar. This is a very similar process and I've adapted the recipe and methods to make my own citrus vinegar. To produce this citrus vinegar, you'll need analog or digital measuring scale, any type of citrus peels, sugar, white, brown or raw, water, kettle, food grade plastic containers or buckets with lids, cutting board, teaspoon, knife, wooden spoon or plastic spatula, dinner bowls, strainer or colander, cheesecloth or fine mesh, storage plastic bottles, distiller, optional. I have been making my own citrus vinegar for a number of years now, generally for cleaning purposes. We have a few orange trees in our garden that we mostly use for juicing and baking. I have just made a bulk lot of orange juice for the fridge and have saved the peels. They're not going to waste. We're going to use those for the first part of the process. You can use any type of citrus or a combination. Make sure the peels are still fairly fresh. You don't want mold growing on them. If you don't have enough, you can temporarily store the peels in the freezer until you have enough. Bulk weigh the amount of citrus peels. Note it down. This will be to estimate how much sugar to put in a little later on. I have 2.115 kilograms, 74.6 ounces of orange peels here. As a guide, for every 100 grams, 3.5 ounces of peels, I will use 1 teaspoon of sugar and add a few more extra teaspoons. Slice the citrus peels into thirds or quarters depending on the size and put these into a container or bucket. In the introduction to this video, I said that my citrus vinegar recipe and process was adapted from the apple cider vinegar recipe, ACV. I learned to make ACV some years ago from watching a YouTube video where for every organic apple they put about a teaspoon of sugar. I estimated a medium-sized apple was about 100 or so grams, so I decided to use the same process but with citrus whole or peels. By weighing the matter and dividing by 100 grams, I could work out how much sugar to add with a more consistent outcome than just estimating. Press the peels down. If the peels are smaller, they will take up less volume. I have really reduced the volume. Remember the peels were overflowing the container before we started? But after pressing down as much as I can, I have nearly filled the container. I realised there are too many peels for one container. I'll need to use another. I am moving about half the weight of peels from one container into the other. There are additional ingredients going in, so I need the room. Feel free to adjust your container weight batch. Pressing down the peels in the containers. I will now be adding the sugar to the bowl for making the sugar wash. This wash is going to feed the bacteria and yeast that will turn our mixture into vinegar. My weight peels is about 2.115 kilograms to 115 grams. So that divided by 100 grams equals 21 or 22 teaspoons in total. If a teaspoon is approx 7 grams, the sugar content is approx 7 to 8% of peels. In the dinner bowl, I am measuring out 12 teaspoons of sugar, 11 teaspoons from weight calculation, and 1 additional. How much sugar are you putting in your mixture? Boil up a full kettle of water. In each container, I will be putting in half the amount of sugar. If you just have one container, full amount of sugar to go in. Now pour the boiling water into the bowl to dissolve the sugar. I am pouring the sugar water into the first container. And then measuring out another 12 teaspoons for the second container. And I'm adding water. I'm now giving this sugar water a stir. Pouring the sugar water into the second container. Keep filling up the bowl with boiled water to dissolve any of the remaining sugar and pour the sugar water into your containers. Keep boiling water and filling the containers until the water level meets the top of the peels or a little over. The water level is now about right. The peels are going to rise naturally. Add a weight like a dinner bowl or plate on top of the peels in each container, keeping the peels submerged in the water and no mold can form. Press down. Loosely place the lids on the containers but don't close it tight. Leave some air to go through. The citrus sugar wash is now ready for its first fermentation. We're going to leave the containers to naturally ferment at room temperature for about a month. Write yourself a note, the date when fermentation started and date in a month's time. I currently have a sugar wash batch outside the house under cover. Every day or second day, open the fermenting containers and use a wooden spoon or plastic spatula to stir the peels and juice around. Keep the weight on to ensure the peels are submerged. During this time, natural fermentation will begin as the sugars break down, turning the mixture into alcohol. After a number of days or a couple weeks, you may hear some bubbling. That's perfectly normal and part of the fermentation process. After around a month of fermentation, it's time to strain out the liquid. Using a fine colander strainer and some food-grade containers buckets, separate the liquid from the peels. You may have to press the peels to get out as much liquid as possible. Let it rest and drip for a little. Transfer the fermented peels from strainer to container. Transfer the fermented liquid into the container. The leftover peels can be used a second time to make another batch of vinegar. Just repeat the initial steps, or they can be composted. I generally like to do another batch of vinegar before peels get composted. No weight is required this time. Loosely cover the strained liquid. Our strained sugar wash liquid will go through a second fermentation for another month. I currently have a strained mixture of lemon peels outside fermenting a second time, and it's nearly ready. I give it a stir every day or 2 days. See how yellow it is? This second ferment process will convert the alcohol into acetic acid, turning it into vinegar. When the second fermentation is complete, we'll be straining the citrus liquid again. This time, we're using a cheesecloth or fine mesh that will remove any chunks or sediment of peels inside. Lay out the cheesecloth or fine mesh inside the strainer over the bucket. Tuck in the cloth on the sides to hold secure. You could use some clothes pegs to hold the cloth down. Now pour in the liquid slowly so the cloth doesn't fall in. I have had the cloth fall on me before and unfortunately had to start straining again. There is a bit of pulp sediment captured here. You may have to run through strainer a second or third time to remove extra matter from liquid. We can now bottle the vinegar. Remove the cloth from strainer. I'm transferring the bucket liquid back to the smaller container just to reduce a risk of a bottling disaster. Another tip you learn from mistakes. Using a funnel, the liquid can now be stored in clean bottles. I generally reuse old plastic milk bottles. Save that. Be prepared. This process may be a little messy. Store the vinegar in a cool place. You could even decide to distill the liquid. Distillation is an optional step if you want a more refined, clear vinegar. I bought a large distiller pot a number of years ago, and ever since I bought it, I've been distilling my homemade citrus vinegar that I use for cleaning purposes. Distilling is a long process and you need a lot of liquid, but I do like the way it looks and feels when cleaning surfaces, rinsing clothes, etc. In a future video, I will be showing the distillation process of citrus vinegar. When complete, the link should appear here. And there you have it, your very own homemade citrus vinegar, made from simple and organic ingredients. Please let me know in the comments how your batch turns out, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Jubilant fermenting.